You're sitting in traffic right now, 40 minutes each way, 5 days a week, trading hours for a salary that was competitive 3 years ago. But here's what nobody told you. You're fluent in the wrong language. While you mastered Excel formulas and corporate jargon, there's an entire dialect spoken in boardrooms, private equity offices, and escrow closings that determines who owns the game and who just plays it. The financial system isn't complex because money is hard to understand. It's complex because confusion is profitable. Every convoluted term, every sophisticated investor-only clause, every financial advisor who nods solemnly while explaining why you need them, it's a paywall, a linguistic barrier designed to keep you renting your life from people who speak the language you don't. And the brutal truth? Most people will spend 40 years working inside businesses they'll never own, inside systems they'll never control, speaking a language that keeps them exactly where they are. But what if I told you that becoming fluent in money isn't about an MBA or a trust fund? It's about recognizing that the game has different rules than the ones you were taught. Stick with me, because in the next 8 minutes, I'm going to show you the 7 linguistic shifts that separate the 1% who architect wealth from the 99% who just exist inside it. Here's the first shift. Finance is a language, not a mystery. Right now, you hear terms like seller financing, EBITDA multiples, debt service coverage ratio, and your brain does what it was trained to do. It defers, it assumes complexity, it waits for an expert. But here's the game. Experts profit from your confusion. Think about it. A financial advisor doesn't get paid when you understand cap rates. A broker doesn't win when you realize you can structure a deal with $0 down. The entire industry is built on you believing that money is a dark art reserved for people in corner offices. Imagine you're sitting across from a seller. He's asking $500,000 for his HVAC business. You don't have $500,000. Most people walk away here. But someone who speaks the language says this: what if I gave you $50,000 now and paid you 20% of profits for the next 5 years? Guaranteed income, no operational headaches for you. That's not genius, that's fluency. Therefore, your first job isn't to make money, it's to decode money. Read 1 term sheet a week, listen to 1 M&A podcast a day. Stop outsourcing your financial literacy to people who profit from your ignorance. Fluency is the first transaction. Now that you're learning the language, here's the second shift, and this one's gonna sting. You're living as a serf in someone else's kingdom. Most people are renters. They rent their time to an employer. They rent their attention to an algorithm. They rent their future to a 401k managed by strangers. And the entire time, someone else is sitting in the owner's chair, collecting the spread between what you produce and what you're paid. I talked to a guy last month, smart, mid-30s, solid corporate job. I asked him, how much revenue did your division generate last year? He said, about 8 million. I asked, how much did you make? 120,000. But here's the knife. His CEO took home 2.3 million. Same year, same revenue, different chair. The owner's chair isn't about working harder. It's about capturing value instead of creating it for someone else. Therefore, your goal isn't climbing the ladder. It's buying the building. You need to shift from employee to equity holder, from labor to leverage, from hoping for a raise to owning the revenue stream. This is the ideological break. The moment you stop asking, how do I get promoted? And start asking, how do I own this? Renters hope, owners decide. All right, so you want to own, but here's where most people self-sabotage. They think ownership means inventing the next app or disrupting an industry. They romanticize the garage startup, the venture capital pitch, the TechCrunch feature. But that's the Hollywood version. The real version? It's boring as hell, and that's exactly why it works. laundromats, car washes, HVAC companies, pest control routes. These aren't sexy, but here's what they are: cash flowing, predictable, and available. I know a woman who bought a laundromat for $150,000, seller financing, no money down. She hired a manager for $40,000 a year. The business nets $90,000 annually. She checks in twice a month. She didn't invent anything. She didn't disrupt anything. She just owned the machine instead of feeding quarters into it. Picture this. You're scrolling Biz Buy Sell at 11 p.m. You see a listing, $200K for a power washing business doing $300K a year in revenue. The owner's retiring. No competition in a 40-mile radius. Your brain says, that's boring. But the owner's chair whispers, that's a gateway drug. Therefore, stop chasing unicorns. Start hunting cash cows. These businesses are your training ground, the deals that teach you how deals work, how to read a P&L, how to negotiate with sellers who just want to retire and play golf. Boring businesses buy back your time. Now you're thinking, okay, but I don't have $150,000 sitting around. Good, because here's the fourth shift, and it obliterates the biggest excuse keeping you broke. You don't need cash to buy businesses. You need creativity. I watched a guy buy a $400,000 pest control company with $12,000 out of pocket. Here's how.
He offered the seller $50,000 down, but he didn't have $50,000. So he found a partner who'd lend him $50K at 8% interest in exchange for 10% equity. But he only paid $12,000 of his own money for closing costs. The rest? Seller financing. The seller agreed to take $350,000 paid out over 7 years at 5% interest, funded entirely by the business's own cash flow. Month 1, the business generated $28,000 in revenue. After expenses and debt service, the buyer pocketed $6,000. He bought a company with the company's own money. Therefore, the deal isn't about how much you have, it's about how well you can structure risk, align incentives, and make the seller believe that your success is their retirement plan. This is the art, the negotiation, the ability to say, I don't have the cash, but I have the commitment, and here's why that's better for you. Cash is overrated. Structure is everything. Let's say you've learned the language, you're hunting deals, you're thinking like an owner.
But here's the fifth shift, the one that separates the merely successful from the dangerously successful. You need to break your frame. Most people set 3-year goals. I'll buy my first business in 3 years. I'll hit $500K in revenue by year 5. But that timeline is a cage. It allows you to use normal tactics, conventional strategies, the same slow grind everyone else is stuck in. So here's the exercise. How would you hit that 3-year goal in 6 months? Not can you, how would you if you had to? Imagine you're at your desk. You've got a goal. Own a $1 million business in 3 years. Now, compress it. 6 months. Your brain panics. Impossible. I'd need capital, connections, deal flow, expertise. But then something shifts. You think, unless I partnered with someone who already has those things, unless I took over a distressed business for almost nothing, unless I leveraged content to attract sellers directly, suddenly you're playing a different game.
Therefore, compression forces innovation. It kills the safe path and demands you find leverage, partnerships, and asymmetric bets that others are too afraid to make. Compress the timeline. Explode the tactics. All right, you're moving fast now. Frame shattered, deals in motion. But here's the sixth shift, and it's the most underrated. Your breakthrough isn't a strategy, it's a person. Most people obsess over the how. How do I structure deals? How do I find sellers? How do I scale? But the 1% ask a different question. Who already knows this? Find one person, just one, who's already done what you're trying to do. Someone who owns 10 businesses, someone who's closed 50 deals, someone who sees opportunities you don't even recognize yet. I met a kid, 24 years old, working as a contractor for a real estate investor. He didn't get paid much, but he got something better: proximity. He watched how deals got structured. He sat in on negotiations. He saw the investor turn a $200K duplex into a $1.2 million portfolio in 18 months. 2 years later, that kid owns 4 properties himself because he learned the game from the inside, not from YouTube videos. Therefore, your job is to become someone's hustler, their right hand, the person who adds so much value that they pull you behind the curtain and show you how the machine works. This is the who strategy, and it's faster than any course, any book, any how-to you'll ever find. The who unlocks the how. Final shift, and this one's meta. You're not just consuming content right now. You should be creating it. Here's the brutal irony. You're watching this video because I created it, and because I created it, I have access to rooms, people, and opportunities that I'd never get from cold emails or LinkedIn messages. Content is networking at scale, but most people think of it as building an audience. That's the side effect. The real power? Content is a signal. When you post insights about deals, about businesses, about the frameworks you're learning, you're telling the world, I'm fluent, I'm serious, I'm in the game. Imagine you post a breakdown of a laundromat acquisition you're analyzing. 300 people see it, 299 scroll past, but one person, a private equity guy with access to deal flow, messages you. I like how you think. Want to look at a deal with me? That's not luck, that's magnetic content. Therefore, create, share what you're learning, document your first deal, teach the frameworks, because every post is a net and you never know who's watching. Content is the net, opportunities are the catch. So here's where we are. You've learned the language, you've moved into the owner's chair, you're hunting boring businesses, mastering creative deal structures, compressing timelines, finding your who, and using content as leverage. But here's the line that separates you from everyone else who just watched this video. Most people will nod, feel inspired, and do absolutely nothing. They'll go back to the commute, the salary, the rented life. But you're going to do one thing this week. Read one term sheet, message one business owner, post one insight. Because the 1% don't wait for perfect, they move. The language is free, the chair is empty. Take it.